Hello, my name is Chris, and today I want to talk about obligations. Specifically, I want to talk about the complete lack of obligations that we have when it comes to relapsing, when it comes to our thoughts and behaviors leading to a relapse. How there is no reason to commit to a course of action if we really don't want to, and why we don't have to believe every thought that we have. There is this thing where we believe that if we have a thought, then it must be true. Even though the actual truth is that we are under no obligation to believe our thoughts. If you were stood next to me right now, poking me, prodding me, saying, "Chris, you suck. Your new haircut is stupid and you are the worst person in the world." At some point, I'm going to have enough of that and say, actually, will you stop being so mean to me? But if I get it into my own head, "Chris, you suck and you are the worst person ever," then I go, well, I must be, because it's come from me. And that leads me down this path of self-destructive, self-sabotaging behavior, where I believe I'm not even worthy of quitting smoking. I'm not even worthy of pushing towards my goals. If we had this thought of, well, I just can't quit smoking, I'm just not capable, I don't have it in me. Because we had this thought, we believe that it's true, and then we go and relapse. Even though I bet we could find evidence that you absolutely can quit smoking. If you manage to quit for even an hour, that is proof that you can do it. The only challenge now is finding a way to replicate whatever you did in that hour long term, no matter what life throws at you. You're under no obligation to believe the idea that a cigarette is going to take away all of your stress. Because even though it may seem that way, we all know by now that the only relief we get from smoking is a relief from the withdrawal caused by the last cigarette. And the next cigarette we have is only going to cause another withdrawal that won't be relieved until we have that next cigarette. So we're under no obligation to believe that. And we're under no obligation to believe that just because we're thinking about a relapse, we have to do it. We can change our mind at any part of the process. Okay, I know I'm under no obligation to believe that a cigarette is going to make things better. But I've got this mental obsession right now. I can't stop thinking about having a cigarette, so I'm going to go and get some cigarettes and smoke. That's the thought. That's the plan. That's the course of action. Just because we've come up with this course of action, we are under no obligation to follow through with it. And we can stop and pivot and do something else at any time. Let's say, okay, we've decided we're going to smoke, and that means we have to put some shoes on and leave the house and go and buy the cigarettes. So we go downstairs and put the shoes on. But just because we've got our shoes on, we are under no obligation to leave the house. Or if we leave the house, we're under no obligation to go to the store. We can just go for a walk, take some deep breaths, get all that lovely air into our lungs, and remind ourselves of why we were quitting smoking in the first place. It was getting all that fresh air in our lungs. It feels so good. Then we walk to the store anyway. Okay? And we get to the store. We're under no obligation to go inside. We can change our mind at that point, and we can turn around and go and do something else. If we go into the store, we're under no obligation to buy cigarettes. We can buy anything else in that store. Or we could even just turn around and leave. But Chris, I can't just leave without buying anything. People will think things about me. They'll think I'm weird. So what? I'm willing to bet you. Try this as an experiment. If you go into a store right now, today, turn around, don't buy anything. I bet you at no point in your life will anybody ever come up to you and say, "Ha, you're that weirdo who went to the shop and didn't buy anything." People will forget it almost instantly because they're too busy thinking about their own lives to care about you. And even if, and I mean that in a nice way, by the way, it's not that nobody cares about you. It's just, they're not going to go, "You're that weirdo who didn't buy anything from the shop." And even the shopkeeper himself will have seen people do this for all kinds of reasons. Not just because they suddenly went, "Actually, I don't have to do this." Say you buy the cigarettes anyway and you leave the shop. You're under no obligation to open that packet of cigarettes. Even though you've bought them, you are under no obligation to open them. But I've spent like £50 on this pack of cigarettes, or however much they cost these days. I've spent all this money. So I have to smoke one to justify spending that money. Justify it to whom? You don't need to justify it to yourself, because you already know that those cigarettes aren't going to do you any favors. You already know that you deserve better. You deserve to be treated with more kindness and compassion than filling your lungs full of toxic poison and gunk. You already know that you're under no obligation to follow through. So just because you've spent that money doesn't mean you're obligated to smoke the cigarettes. Throw them away. Give them to a friend. Give them to a random stranger. Providing they don't smoke, like don't start somebody else smoking. You open the packet and you light the cigarette. You're under no obligation to smoke that cigarette all the way to the end. I've shared so many times about my last cigarette was the one that made me throw up all over the floor, and it was disgusting. My last cigarette was probably the only cigarette in my life I never finished. Because I was like, this is, what am I doing? This is horrible. So I put it out and I stopped smoking it. You can stop at any time. Even if there's only 2 drags left, well, I might as well have these 2 drags. Why? What are those 2 drags going to do for you that the rest of the cigarette didn't do? You're smoking a cigarette, you have like 3 or 4 puffs and go, well, that's not quite done it. But 3 or 4 more drags of this cigarette, that's where the magic lies, in those last couple of drags. Is it? You're under no obligation to finish that smoke. When you finish the smoke anyway, then you say, well, now that I've had this one cigarette, I might as well smoke the rest of the packet before I quit again. Or I might as well smoke other packets and smoke until the end of the week, or until the end of the month, or until this project gets done at work. And then I'll quit again. You're under no obligation to follow through on that. Just because that's what you've decided to do, you're not committed to it. Nobody's going to put a gun to your head and say, right now you have to smoke until, the end of the month. You can throw that packet away and start your quit journey again. It's like walking down the street. And what I'm about to say to you is very disgusting, and I apologize, it's very gross, but this is the visual that keeps coming to my mind. It's like walking down the street and somebody has let their dog run amok down the street. and the dog has made dog mess everywhere. We're walking down the street to get to somewhere, to get to a specific place, and accidentally stand in the dog mess. The thought that most people would have is, oh my goodness, I've stood in this dog poo, it is disgusting, it is horrible, I need to go and clean my shoe and then start again getting to wherever I wanted to be without standing in any more dog poo. Right? What we wouldn't do is say, well, now that I've stood in this dog poo, I might as well go and stand in all the other dog poo that there is, and then I'll go and clean my shoe, because if I've stood in one bit, I might as well just stand in it all, and then I can clean it all off together. That would be insanity. It would also be really disgusting. And if I have forever linked smoking cigarettes with dog poo in your mind, then good. I'm glad about that. But you see what I mean, right? We just wouldn't do it. But we somehow get this thing of, well, now that I've put this toxic poison into my lungs, now that I've harmed myself, now that I've put myself at risk, I might as well keep doing it and do all of it and then stop. Why? There's no obligation to stand in dog poo. There is no obligation to keep smoking. There's only an obligation to just be kind to yourself, because you deserve it. And you can quit smoking no matter what, no matter how many obstacles, no matter how far you get into a relapse. You're under no obligation to keep going, because you have it in you to successfully quit. You just do. And you know how I know? Because every day I scroll through the messages in our Finding Freedom group on Facebook, and I scroll through the comments in my videos, and I see people saying, Chris, it's been 5 months since my last cigarette. It's been 10 months since my last cigarette. It's been a year since my last cigarette. So many people are quitting smoking and staying quit long term. And you are just as capable, just as resourceful, just as strong as any of those people. And that means that you can quit too. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope that's been useful or helpful, or just giving you something to think about. I've almost forgot what I was going to say then. For more information, advice, stories about quitting smoking, I did write a book. It is called Quit Smoking and Be Happy. It is available in ebook and print format. You can get the links down in the description below, or go to chrisscoyles.com/book to come and meet all of my friends and all of those people who are successfully quitting smoking, and the ones who are still struggling in Finding Freedom. Facebook.com/groups/findingfreedom1. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Goodbye.